Hello, fellow EDU 5113 classmates. For my peer engagement activity today, I aim to address a topic that lies at the heart of education's fundamental promise, inclusivity. In our pursuit of equitable education, it is necessary to examine how resources are allocated, particularly within the realm of special education. As educators and policymakers navigate the complexities of budgeting for these types of programs, I've chosen this as a topic for my peer engagement activity today to confront not just the financial logistics, but also the ethical imperatives, striving to ensure that every learner, regardless of their ability, is provided with the tools and opportunities to thrive. And more specifically, how we as the participants can fully integrate ourselves into this issue and possibly think further about its implications. So this is a breakdown of the contents of my presentation today. First, I'm going to explain the topic as it pertains to inclusive/special education, a brief background of the topic, my peer engagement activity and the steps, and then my reference/additional resource list for you. So when it comes to inclusive/special education, a topic that continually emerges is the process of budgeting, staffing, and support/resources available. However, how little do we ask ourselves or ask other educators, school boards, administrators, and policymakers how much budgeting is allocated to special education programs each year? And within these budgets, where and how do resources get divided? Essentially, are all students with disabilities and exceptionalities included in these types of processes? Looking specifically at Ontario, for example, the Ontario Education Funding Plan for the 2022 to 2023 school year was $1.61 billion. This allocation addresses the variation among school boards with respect to their population of students with special education needs and school boards' ability to support these needs. Although a budget was not accessible for the most recent school year in Ontario, I began to think more deeply about how to reallocate certain resources to special needs education programs while identifying ways in which the current education system fails to provide these students with proper supports. To engage thoughtfully and meaningfully in this topic, my overarching goal for this activity is for you yourself to consider the ways in which individuals with disabilities their type of education may be well-resourced to best fit their needs, and to work towards including their voices and experiences in supports and resources. So this is going to be a step-by-step breakdown of my peer engagement activity. So in this peer engagement activity, you're first going to begin by watching a thought-provoking TED Talk by disability rights lawyer Elise Roy that sheds a light on the complexities of designing our world for disability first, so that we can find solutions that are better for everybody, which includes what we design for, which is the norm. As a disability rights lawyer and design thinker, Elise discusses that being deaf has given her a unique way of experiencing and reframing the world, a perspective that could solve some of our largest problems, which could be extended to resource allocation for special education program budgeting. Step 2. Following this, you will then be tasked with reading Chapter 4, Funding Formulas, from the book Financing Quality Education for All, the Funding Methods of Compulsory and Special Needs Education. This chapter places a light on what is coined as the funding formula, in which the authors look at British Columbia, Estonia, Finland, and Massachusetts to describe how each central government municipalities explain how the funds are allocated to particular schools or school districts for students with special needs. Published in 2019, this chapter provides readers up-to-date tools and background knowledge as to how funds are calculated and distributed in a Canadian context, as well as other countries and places around the world. As you can see in the bottom right corner of the page here, you will need your U Ottawa login to access this chapter. It's fully downloadable, so you can keep a copy for yourself. So as you can see on the screen, I've taken an example of some of the tables that were used for basic funding in Canada, as well as an example of the total allocation. So this provides a greater picture for how resources are budgeted, and specifically you will find more of these in the chapter. So step 3 is creating a mind map for your own special education resource allocation. And I'll explain that in a bit. So using the chapter you read, your final task will be to use an online free-to-use mind map creator in the platform Canva, in which you will decide how to reallocate resources to the special needs program at either a primary or secondary level. So using this chapter and the video that you watched, you will work with a budget of $100, and you will need to use the funding formula to reallocate resources in a primary or secondary level of your choosing with the needs of all students in mind. So for example, you can make connection to Elise Roy's video talking about designing for a disability and come up with a list of potential violations this could entail. Example, steep ramps, no elevators, and how you plan to fix them in a school of your choosing. It could be your own school, a school that you went to, whatever it is. You will need to name 4 to 5 different ways, the more the better, on how you're going to allocate that $100 to different resources that meets the needs of all students. With both physical needs, so provide examples of the specific physical needs, and then learning, emotional, and behavioral needs, and then provide specific examples of those as well. Overall, your mind map must ensure that individuals with disabilities have the same resources and opportunities and advantages as all other students. And you're going to need to categorize your $100, your whole budget, into the following categories outlined in Chapter 4, which is special resources, staff, student services, capital, and other. And those categories are better explained in the chapter. So once you are in Canva, you don't need to have an account. You'll be able to add your own mind map using the templates provided and see others' mind maps, which will also facilitate meaningful discussion amongst your peers and their ideas regarding resource and budget allocation. You can add comments and sticky notes to everyone's mind maps. Follow the steps on my screen, which I'll play the video, to begin sharing your own mind map and figuring out how to do it on your own. So by creating your own mind map, which is really great to visually organize your insights and perspectives, but you're also provided the opportunity to think through the possible objections, new and emerging ideas, and factors you didn't consider, and discuss that amongst your peers. So we don't necessarily always get the opportunity to be involved in these types of budgeting processes, for example. So this is your opportunity to do that and see really how you would allocate. Here are some examples of very basic yet helpful budgeting mind maps to pull inspiration from. What you want to strive for is being very clear and to the point with your thought process and where you've chosen to allocate resources within programming. So by engaging in this activity, my hope is that you can explore the dynamic interplay between budgetary considerations and the principles of inclusive education, what you would value in inclusive education, both from our course and your own experiences. Many of those in the field tend to think about budgeting your resources for special education programming, but often do not have the opportunity to delve into the challenges and triumphs faced in this type of process. And what is the type environment that you want to create for every student to feel valued, supported, and empowered? So additionally, you'll be asked to determine what you define as the best practices that not only address the immediate needs, but also foster long-term sustainability and inclusivity within our educational systems here. So lastly, here are my references and additional resources that I've used both in my presentation and some things that I found through my own research that if you want to learn more about the topic, please go through the list. So these are my references here. And here are my additional resources. So these resources provide more background information on budgeting based on various factors and the most recent updated budgets in Canada and Ontario, with a specific look at special education programming and budgeting for First Nation students in Canada. Please take the time if you have to read through if you're interested in learning more about this topic. Together, let us explore the vital intersection of special education, allocation, budgeting, and the pursuit of a more inclusive educational landscape. Thank you so much for your participation in my activity, and I really look forward to hearing and seeing your feedback. Thank you.